You're live. You're live at not quite 5. Well, it depends on where you are. And Merry Christmas or whatever else. Pardon the sweater. Got moved. I wore that earlier. To block the wind mostly. I had done a video about holiday or seasonal tartans, and I thought, well, that's enough. But now it occurs to me that I did that video 4 months ago, so there's a good chance that you're tuning into this and you haven't actually seen that yet. In fact, hardly anybody watched that one. So this video should be reasonably short to just kind of funnel people to that content in case you're waking up Christmas morning and wishing you had a kilt, or in some cases just got a gift certificate to a well-known kilt maker on the East Coast with whom I have no affiliation. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so, but last week, oddly enough, after I had just worn a kilt one day hiking and hadn't had really worn any in a while, even though I had meant to, it just kind of didn't happen. I don't necessarily have to have an occasion to wear them, but a holiday is a good excuse for an occasion to wear them. So even more reason to do this video, I guess. Again, having done videos about, price range and such, an old neighbor whom I had not seen in a while was in town visiting and said, "Aren't you the guy who I used to always see wearing the kilt?" And yes, that's correct. And he said, "Why would you want to wear a kilt?" And I kind of evaded the answer because I knew where he was going with this line of questioning, And I just said, "I love wearing a kilt. I love wearing kilts. I'm not going to pretend to be ashamed about it or whatever you're thinking." And he needed, but well, I have Scottish relatives, or okay, good enough, kind of thing. You qualify, like as if I had to qualify to do this. You don't. Okay. Again, reputable East Coast kilt maker will ram this home in their 850 million videos. That if you're seeing this, it's a miracle because they don't pop up all that often. That's why I decided to make this in the middle of the night. Just to try and get some attention for my little channel that I thought was going to be much more about kilts and tweeds and tartans and things, and by and large is mostly about boots. So there you go. And yes, you can wear certain boots with kilts and it will look just fine. But as I always have to explain to people who aren't really interested in getting a kilt but like to probe deeper than the neighbor guy into the process, it really does depend on your price range, how much you're willing to spend, how much you want to dip your toes versus how much you really want to jump in. Like I said, I've done half a dozen videos at least about kind of this topic, so I won't belabor all that point again, but it is true, very true, that you do need to learn, if you're serious about this, a lot of things kind of all at once. But then once you've been fitted or have your order in or got the first one, you can kind of forget most of it. Okay. So don't be too overwhelmed. But and of course, a lot of people, they don't want to have, a different kilt for different occasions so much. Some do, others are more like, but my family name is this. Wouldn't I just have my family tartan? If your family even has a tartan, or other affiliated organizations or, associations can exist. Again, I talked about this quite a bit, I think, in the seasonal tartans video, so I won't go overboard. But again, and no, you're not technically supposed to, put a dress Stuart with a red. I just put the silly hat on to keep my hair down. Yes, it's a bit messed up from wearing a hat earlier. I do have nicer hats than this silly thing. But it doesn't matter because it's a festive holiday. Christmas, or if you're more in the hogmanay spirit, a week early, then go with it. Go with it. But yes, obviously the most important, well, like I said, the most important thing people think will be what tartan or what weight of fabric, but the fit is the most important thing. And trying to nail that down can be tricky from company to company, especially the budget companies, where you're kind of flying blind and they may or may not have a decent return policy. But even some of the reputable companies, according to friends, don't have that great of a return or exchange policy either, because they consider them custom garments. And so you're kind of flying blind, hoping to find someone who can adjust it for you and do it correctly, which can be just as daunting or worse than buying the initial kilt. Understood. Don't want to hurt your brain in advance, but try and get your measurements as accurate as possible to what you think will fit you. Now, I like them a little tight because I think they loosen up through the day, so I tend to buy them a little small, but sometimes they're too small and then they're just uncomfortable. Sometimes they sew the pleats, I think, kind of to a template or something along those lines, and then they just adjust the aprons from there. I've had this argument with some of the mid-range kilt makers and kind of gotten nowhere, and still had to go in and get buckles adjusted and things. But at least that was only like $20, not the end of the world kind of thing. So yeah, like, again, depending on how much you're willing to spend, that will dictate, because certain kilt manufacturers will offer better material, but their construction methods are still not very sound. So you kind of get what you pay for. So yeah, you saved $100 here, but you're not going to be as happy overall. I find that, stuff on eBay and stuff that was former wedding rentals and stuff, there's a fair amount of it out there, but a lot of it will be, the fit will be goofy. It'll be too short. Somebody ordered a bunch of mini skirts with a really big waist or something. I've rarely found very many in used, condition that I could really use. I mean, I'm kind of lucky in that I can wear a 24 just fine, which is the standard length, but I prefer them a little bit shorter than that. So when I have to get the ones that I've gotten modified, if they hemmed it wrong, it's horrible. So if you're getting a real Scottish wool kilt, there shouldn't be any hem. It should have a selvage edge, and you don't have that problem. But then you have to get it shortened from the waist if you need it shortened. And again, you have to find somebody who actually knows what they're doing, or they're just going to hem it and mess the whole thing up or whatever. It's kind of, so like, I'd like to be able to say, well, buy a couple cheap ones and see how they fit, and then what size you want for the better ones. But it doesn't work that way. I've pointed this out in several videos. Again, I'm making this for anybody who's just stumbling on this, and I won't go on for too much longer because, again, I have plenty of content kind of discussing which kilts I think were worth the money and which kilts I thought were fine for beginners, I guess, but beginners who are going to end up frustrated, I guess. But again, if you've gotten a coupon or something to one of the, I don't know, 3 or 4 kind of big ones in the United States, then you're kind of going to navigate with them anyway. And maybe you'll like the way they make the kilts and you'll keep getting them from them instead of the others, or maybe you'll shop around later. Hard to say. Who knows? I've shopped around a little, but not entirely. And I haven't gone the full custom bespoke route because that is just significantly out of my price range, since I want, again, kind of more an array of serviceable garments rather than one ultimate, this is my pride and joy garment, and I bought a couple that I thought were going to be that, but they weren't constructed quite good enough. and a couple that were constructed fairly well, but since I got 8 yards instead of 5 yards, I just don't wear them that often because the weather's too warm here for them. So that can be another pitfall. So, like I said, so 1, fit; 2, fabric and fabric weight; 3 or 2, you could kind of reverse them. Garment construction, price range, all that kind of thing. Those are your most important things. And then after that can come accessories and what you're going to pair with it and wear with it and all that. And again, there's 800,000 USA videos about which socks go with your tie and all that. So I kind of thought I would, get more into that as I went on, but nobody seems to, be too interested. They usually already kind of have their idea of how they're going to do it, no matter how much you try to tell them, do it this way and you'll, look better. Yeah, but, or I don't care, I'm only doing mud races or whatever. So like, okay, fine, whatever. If you have any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to address those things. Or like I said, you can go back and watch a couple of those other videos and see how far you get, and hopefully that will eliminate some of the confusion. Yeah, I don't know what, I mean, like I said, I'm just kind of rushing this out to get it out on the YouTube for people who might wake up in a couple hours and be wondering, well, shall I step into this magical world of kilting where random neighbors will give me funny looks and ask me annoying questions, or whatever? Or am I just really, 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 really ready to do this for the... You won't... well, the reason I put out that video 4 months ago is because you won't be able to get a kilt that's of any decent quality in time for today, or even likely in time for New Year, although you might be able to get one off Amazon in time for New Year. It will be probably a $30 thing that you'll not want to wear very often, and will probably be very terrible in cold weather if you are in cold weather, because the acrylic fabric tends to not be. But the wool fabric, you will find, I think, is similar to other fabrics and things where it will be very hot in summer, but not necessarily as warm as you thought it would be in winter. There's kind of that sweet spot in parts of autumn and spring where kilts are absolutely fantastic, and then in winter kind of okay most of the time, depending on what you're pairing with it. And then in summer, I do want those cheap, lousy things to just sweat in them and throw them in the wash and wear them hiking or whatever, and not wear them very much to kind of sit around the house. Tends to get a bit sweaty in the middle, and tend to still go back to cargo shorts or whatever more in the summer. But I have worn kilts in the summer. It is a thing you can do, and I'm sure I did a video about that already too. So yeah, great. Okay, we're under 15 minutes. That's plenty for now. Like I said, if there's any super burning questions, I hopefully can help it out. And otherwise, holidays and merry and yada 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 and all that kind of thing, right?